Over time, things which were once seen as extraordinary end up being taken for granted, and so it's proved with the London Underground, or the Tube, as it's universally known here. Millions use it every day without the slightest thought of what it symbolised when it was constructed. Yet, 150 years ago, the Tube was a triumph of the human imagination and Victorian ambition. Many Londoners refused to go underground to begin with, overwhelmed with fear that the roof would surely cave in on them. The idea that you could build an underground railway, which ended up stretching across the capital, was completely revolutionary and typified the confidence of Britain at the time. Now, as in the 19th century, Londoners have a complete love-hate relationship with the Tube, but in many ways they have a lot to feel grateful for. After all, this was an extraordinary achievement copied throughout the world. Hardly a surprise, really, that politicians in the 21st century keep invoking the Victorian spirit as something to emulate. Consider for a moment other things the Victorians were doing. Massive construction projects like bridge building, making the world's first motor cars and bicycles. The suburbs were built at the back half of the 19th century, terraced houses providing shelter for a new urban workforce. The Victorians revolutionised life in the city, and the Tube was one of their greatest achievements.
Goods were moving out to the empire, and goods were coming in, and flows of money were coming in. So people were willing to take a risk because, by and large, there were bank runs, but by and large the currency was stable, the government was stable, the economy was stable and growing rapidly, and so people were willing to take risks.
Fast forward a century and a half and you have a country which is far less confident. The current government points to projects like this one, a new rail line from the countryside into London, desperate for a greater ambition to mimic what the Victorians did.
There is now an urgent need to repair the decades-long degradation of our national infrastructure and to build for the future with as much confidence and ambition as the Victorians once did.
Of course, there are still grand designs in London, Western Europe's tallest building, for instance, but nowadays these projects are more likely to be funded by boom economies in places like the Middle East, expanding just as Britain once did. The Elizabethans of the early 21st century can no longer afford to do these things alone. Laurence, Al Jazeera, London.